to the December 18, 2024 West Town East Goshen Regional Police Commission meeting. And we did not have an executive session, so go around the table. I'm Dick Pomerantz, I'm the chair.
Cody Bright, vice chair.
Tom Stone.
Neela Carter, West Town Township Manager.
Derek Davis, East Goshen manager.
Brenda Bernard, Chief of Police. Abby Brill, Business Manager.
Caitlin Coffin, West County Scotian Police Department.
So with that, before we do anything, we stand to say. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. We stand one nation under God, indivisible, and justice for all. Before we sit down, just a moment of silence, and I want to do something a little bit different, and that is that we always think of this this time of year as a celebration time with family, but I'm very conscious of the fact that that whether it be in law enforcement or for other first responders, or in fact families around the country, there are people who, for this time of year, it's not a time of celebration. And so I'd like to think about that as well. Thank you. So we'll begin with we held an executive session just now on the issue with personnel. We also held executive sessions on November 20th. It was personnel. 23rd was legal and personnel. December 3rd, personnel and legal. December 5th, personnel and legal. December 9th, same. December 14th, legal. And so with that, I'll go to the chairman's report. Oh, the minutes? Yeah, why don't you do that?
Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from the November 2024 meeting.
Second. Any questions, bud? All in favor?
Aye.
Good. On the chairman's report, it isn't often like that somebody has an opportunity to say that there's something that happened, which really doesn't necessarily directly relate to the police department, but relates to every resident in the community that the police department serves and others, where you can say that we're going to have an impact, and that event will have an impact on generations to come in the most positive way. And on December 9th, after a number of years, finally, Quebilly is now open space. One of the planning commissioners for West Town pointed out to me in our public meeting on Monday that for some of us who started way back when, Quebilly and whatever would happen to Quebilly goes back almost 17 or 18 years. But the fact is that Quebilly is now settled. It'll bring eventually a year from now, a year and a half from now, when after a master plan has been conducted and it'll be something for families, open space, passive recreation, etc. Having said that, I think that there will be challenges. The challenges for our board, challenges for our administration, to some extent challenges also, new challenges for the police department. It's because the level of expectation on the public as to when can they have access to this, why can't we just go and see this now? It's growing even more so. It's getting more accentuated. So I think that we'll start getting the phone calls. When I say we, probably come to you, Amelia. So the question will be, some of them may be directed to the police if not necessary. Okay. So, and in that vein, I want to thank everybody who's ever had a role to play in this. There have been a ton full of stakeholders, and that's from years before, now, and probably in the future as well. And to the chief and your department for the roles that you guys have played over the years. I know that my board feels this way, as I want to thank you for all the efforts that you've held in And thank you for it. It's a big deal for us. So, somebody said is that there's probably never been, and this came out of our meeting, our public meeting on Monday. Whether it be other members of my board who've had sort of at a late time, if you will, a later time. And then certainly the people who were in the room, they see this as probably the most important thing that our township has ever done. Just in terms of the impact that it's going to have. It certainly has gotten an amazing amount of exposure, publicity around the country, including. So it's been interesting. On another point that this has been a very impactful year, consequential year for, I'll speak for the police commission and for the Wego Police Department. And so I just want to thank everybody involved. I want to start with the two township managers for the roles that you've helped out and played with us. Same thing, obviously, for the chief and her department. Kathy, for you and your department. And then for my two colleagues here. It's been a lot of work, but I've appreciated everything that you've done. I think we work pretty well as a team. And as Tom always points out, is that you can have disagreement, but you don't necessarily means that you're not a friend. So that's worked out extremely well. On a very personal note, I want to thank Tom for one other thing. And it is police oriented, police driven. For me, on a personal, what my biggest takeaway, among other things, being the 28-hour week-long seminar for the FBI leader program on command leadership. It was, I think that every elected official should go through it. Does it make you a better police commissioner? I don't know. What it does do is that it helps you put yourself in the shoes to some extent of the police department and law enforcement and administration. Oh, thank you for the opportunity. It was extraordinary. And that's all yours.
That's great, thank you. This will be longer than my normal bike chair report, but two things, Chief, I wanted to bring up for this increase. I don't know when I bring this up, I just want to bring it up now before I forget. We've had two, I use word complaints, I don't like that word, but two requests for additional patrol outside the bottom of Summit House. When people try to get out of there, people are flying down. Question. I think you may have met Jerry Ruth, he lives at 200 Reservoir Road. He goes to our meetings sometimes. He talking about those stop signs that sit outside his house. Them being constantly ran, but then between that paling being a, what do you say, like a NASCAR strip or something along those lines. So is it possible to be?
I think he was specifically requesting that there can be some more rotation with the electronic signs.
I think that was the request. Yeah. And then I think one of my favorite things, Ben, I responded to your email, this, one of my favorite things about the being a police commissioner this year, obviously other than getting another officer, was the compliments that you send, whether they're monthly or bi-monthly. I always enjoy seeing all the gratitude and thankfulness that residents go out of their way to show how much our officers go out of their way to assist the residents. So that's probably been, I know it's word cheesy to say, it's probably one of my favorite things about commission, though, just to see how much you always know, like your police, you know, people care about your police and so forth, but when you actually have residents writing in to show how much they care, it makes you feel good, you know. So just appreciate you and your team for all the great work that they've done this year.
I don't have a lot. I understand that today might be an event for the families of the police. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have the children's party today.
How about that?
Very
I think that's a great idea, and I'm sure on behalf of this commission, we want you to convey to the families that sincere appreciation for the sacrifices that the families of the officers make, and we all three of us wish a very successful event this afternoon, and we will continue to do everything to see that people come home safe at the end of the tour.
And for Westtown, there will be the fire truck again that comes with Santa on it. So only for a couple minutes. So There's been fire in the building. I have to remember to call Sunrise too. We usually give them a heads up.
Came by on Saturday or Sunday, by our house. We learned something about one of our dogs. We learned how to sing. So as the siren was going, all we kept hearing was, "Arr!" For about 2 minutes. He had never sung. It was sweet. Let's move to the review, the approved bills. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
Any questions on it, guys? No?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Township Roundtable? All in favor?
Sure. Just a couple of other things. PennDOT project on 2020926. It seems that the road crew is mobilizing. They will start sometime in the spring. We did get a call from Public Works Director yesterday that they dropped off material on Crabbilly without asking the township. So we are trying to get that issue resolved, but you would probably see road closures on 2020926 at some point in the spring. We are getting more complaints from the gentleman who lives on West Pleasant Grove Road. He is well known. He's parking. Yes, he parks his cars in front. We also start getting complaints from the neighbor saying that they cannot clearly see when they try to turn from Dunvegan to West Pleasant Grove Road. Because there is a visibility issues of how he's parking those cars. So I talked to him yesterday and he is asking for a stop sign where West Pleasant Grove and then Vegan roads are. He's asking for a speed bump and he is proposing to pay for it. So, and he's asking for additional enforcement, which I've seen the electronic sign there. So he said it's been going on for about 12 years now. I asked him to repark his cars and we'll see how that would go.
We've had a lot of contact with them and we would like to see a lot of traffic improvements. But that's clearly not something the police department can do. What we've done is, the last time we dropped off the radar speed sign, I was with Officer Cam and I went to talk to him. And we've assured him that we're doing everything we can for traffic enforcement, but we don't have the power to put in stop signs or speed humps. So
Yeah, I reached out to our traffic engineer just to get his perspective because it's been a while. So I'll see what Alpha Derico might come up with in terms of recommendations for that. I don't know if traffic volumes are there to warrant the stop sign, probably not.
And the sight distance, if absent his car being parked there, there are no sight distances at those intersections that he's, I mean, all the things that you would check a blocks to say.
To be able to do it, yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that the road is, we have done numerous reports for the township indicating that that road is in bad shape. Because the edges of the roadway are breaking off and with all the commercial vehicles that travel on that, I don't know if speed humps
It's
would be an option for you either.
So we are hoping to place the West Pleasant Grove Road on the road program for next year. Because we have to do some tree removal along Crabbilly as well. So maybe that would be during that process for placing it on a road program and looking at the design. We will touch base to see, maybe you have some recommendations on how to make it better.
Yes, I would always like to have. They always do.
Yeah.
They always have good ideas too.
Yeah.
Quick question on the Friday meeting. When, where? Pick the
We
time.
can meet at Darlington Inn,
Okay,
and I
at
think
the
it's
end.
at 2:00, yeah, at the end, because there's a plenty of parking of Old Wilmington Pike.
Okay, so you want to meet at the site. Okay,
Yep.
I'll make sure.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sure.
Derek?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Cody actually took my one thing I was gonna bring up, so I
We
appreciate
have to hold
that.
that other accountable.
Yeah, appreciate that. The only other thing I had was, we're actually, and it's gotten a little farther this time, but we're kind of restarting the conversation with the school district with the East Goshen Elementary traffic, which is seems to be the situation and the issue that never goes away in front of our building with that traffic buildup while people are waiting to get their kids. I'm supposed to meet with our engineer, Pinoni, because according to their engineer, school district engineer, it might be a good idea to look at some restriping, in that area if possible. Mainly because the shoulder was obviously taken away with the Bailey Pike Trail addition. But there is some wiggle room on the other side of the Bailey Pike as far as the shoulder. So I have Pinoni looking into some conceptual designs of whether we can move the shoulder over to the other side of the road or not. To give it a little bit more, parking area, if you will, for people to just kind of sit there and wait for their kids. Not ace in the hole solution, but I think it might suffice for now. There was a couple other ideas brought up, but that might be more long-term and cost the district a little bit more money in terms of their own property. I guess the bottom line is I'm not keeping the police out of it on purpose, but it's just, we've gone through this so many times. I don't think it's really necessary for anybody to get involved. It becomes a little bit more down the road. If we're making more progress, I probably will reach out to Ted and see what kind of input we can get after we get the conceptual drawings back. And we don't know how long PennDOT would take to even approve that, because I was involved in one restriping similar project and that took 9 years. So anyway, we're starting the conversation again because it continues to come up with board members and the public. So we'll keep Ted and you guys appraised of what's transpiring there.
Chief, before we go to you, I want to welcome Cindy. And just,
Mike Ragney was just called out to meet with Eric. That's why he came in.
oh, I didn't even see
Yeah.
that, but I wanted to welcome Cindy King, who's here, and she's our finance director. Chief?
I sent out the compliments on December 16th, and there were 4 compliments that were included in the batch. It included an appreciation for increased traffic enforcement on Shiloh Road, where we've been having a lot of issues. A complimentary correspondence regarding professional handling of a patient at a rehab center that was undergoing a severe mental health crisis. And also the fact that appreciative residents and businesses provided lunch on 2 separate occasions. Was very nice. And that's what I ought to have.
Question to ask you, because I was actually asked this by 2 residents on Monday, privately, and that is that, or might have been on a phone call. Somebody asked me, is that with what happened at that, in Madison, Wisconsin with the shooting, of course, they said they don't have an SRO. It's a great thing we have an SRO. But they do have, can you, again, this is really for the public if they're going to watch it. Can you explain why we think that our kids, whether it be at an elementary school or K-1 to 12, whatever it is, and whether it be private or public schools, hopefully are more safe than what happened in Madison, Wisconsin?
There are many goals to a school resource officer program. Most people think it's just to catch kids doing something wrong. Although we have found that having a school resource officer keeps violent crime down and makes us more aware of other activities that are going in there. We do not have a school to pipeline, the pipeline they talk about school to prison. We don't have that. Our goal is to find problems early, address them through proactive measures, diversionary programs before it turns into something like violence. One of the things that we have found is that because we're in the schools, we're more likely to truly know what's going on, who's involved. So it allows us to intervene before it goes to violence. The other thing that we definitively have found, and I think when Officer Dittus talked about his master's thesis, you saw it in there, that it's very important to make sure that you're building positive relationships with juveniles. Because not only do they feel more comfortable talking to you and you can intervene before it gets serious, but also because if there's something wrong in their household where they're being abused, or there's something wrong in general, they feel confident going to the officer because they trust them. So the dividends that I see from an SRO far outweigh any possible negativity. And we have taken definitive steps, not simply because we're there to say, I saw you doing something wrong, I'm going to charge you. That is our last resort. We don't do that. We try to find other measures. We try to work with all of the other systems that are available in Chester County. Like we had one child who was having a problem with home because a grandparent had moved in. We've got Department of Aging involved. Then we have a parent that's struggling to meet, feed the child. We worked with the services available in Chester County to get them help. So there's never a guarantee that having an SRO in a school will completely eliminate the possibility. But I think there are so many positive benefits from having an SRO that the probability or the possibility that we would have it in our schools is diminished.
So 2 follow-up questions, and both came from residents. The first question is that with it, I'm using, this was a Westtown resident. So
Okay.
with the number of schools that we have in Westtown,
Yes.
how does one SRO deal with all of that?
It is very challenging. And when we start to see that we have problems, or we see potential problems, or we see possibilities for a positive interaction, we use our alternates whenever possible. One of the good things is that we do at this point till the end of the year have grant money that allows us to do positive community events. So would it be ideal to have an SRO in the middle school, the high school, and one for like maybe the elementaries and one? Yeah, but financially it's just not feasible. So what we do is we use our alternates. We also have a juvenile detective. And when he starts to see that there's a possibility of a juvenile case, he gets involved. And patrol and detectives can be assigned as needed.
What's the relationship between teachers and the SRO?
That's a very good question. Having the officer in there means, number one, not only do the children know who to go to and they develop that relationship, the administration and the staff also develop that relationship. And not only is that good because you hear more before it gets serious, but also there's that continuity. You don't have one officer who comes in who's like, arrest them all. And somebody comes in and is like, well, kids will be kids. You have that consistency. They know what to expect from us. We know what to expect from them. And I think the positive relationships really do pay dividends.
And the last question from the same person was, and it's an interesting question, is can a kid today, no matter what, whether it be elementary school, middle school, or the high school, even walk in or have the ability to walk into a school carrying a gun?
There's always that possibility because we don't have metal detectors in the vast majority of schools. In fact, I'm not sure if we have them in any of our schools. So I think that the relationship that we've developed with the school is if a parent calls the school gets a hold of us and we do a united, because this actually happened recently at one of our schools, is that a child made a comment in the bus. Somebody in the bus heard it, called their parent. And by the time the child got to the school, we were aware and we were waiting.
Is society moving to the point where, because you brought up a really good point, you said, is that it's hard to imagine how we'd be able to afford to do a lot of this stuff going forward, particularly if the trend continues to get on. This is not a police commission issue, it's more of a societal issue. 10 years from now, do you think that there's going to be more of a demand and more of a need for whoever the authority, I don't know if that's at the county level or what level, it starts saying, okay, well, the way we thought about guarding against this kind of stuff happening, we're gonna have to approach it a little differently.
I think that we are very fortunate, particularly with the Westchester Area School District. They have done some significant steps towards addressing the issue. The first thing that they've done is they've tried to get a psychologist at each and every one of their schools. Number two, they've changed their program. They have things that are called campus security officers. And they are very selective about who they choose. Most of the time, they are retired law enforcement officers from Chester County who know the area, who know everything, and they are our eyes and ears. The combination of what the school has done and the fact that we have an SRO, I think we are steps ahead of where we were even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We're way ahead. But I think schools are starting to recognize that this is something that they can't ignore. So wherever possible, they're trying to put measures in place. And also some of the training that we're doing. I remember when I arrived, we were suggesting to the school district ALICE training and some other training for their teachers so that they were prepared. They were not receptive. In the last 2 years, every single teacher has received ALICE training. And also, I don't want to go into some of the safety measures because it's not productive to do it in a public meeting, but the school district has embraced and implemented almost every one of our security measures that we have recommended.
And just for the sake of, because people will want, what is ALICE training?
I forget what the acronym, but it's basically, honestly, I don't know what the acronyms, but it's basically an active shooter training or an active threat of
Correct,
any
yeah.
type of training.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
One follow-up, does the school district have a police force or security force?
Not per se, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the chiefs?
Just slide down, budget.
I don't, I don't really, I mean, it's a program for active threats. And it tells you that you have certain, you're trained to have certain options and to exercise them.
Let's move on to all business, the accreditation update.
I think it's progressing well. The accreditation consultant originally stated that he believed we would be ready for our accreditation assessment without an extension. But moving forward, I think that's going to depend on the department's ability to provide assistance and support for the consultant. But it was good news. He said, I think it's going to be kind of close, but I think we could do it without an extension. So matter to the commission or the department, whether it's with or without.
Any questions?
No,
Commercial vehicle scales?
It's just on there so it doesn't drop off because we wanted to talk about it again in January.
New
You
business,
got Tom excited, Kathy.
fuel bid, 2020.
So the fuel bid was open this morning at 9:00 a.m. according to the Post classified ad. I had two witnesses, Kate Coffin and Sheila Jones. We only received one fuel bid from Rose Energy, which is known as Riley and Sons in Exton. Their Malvern rack price size of $12,924 was $1.97.1. The differential is 15 cents. The unit price per gallon is 2.121 for a total of $76,363.20. You just want to accept the bid. I will let
That
them
number
know.
again, Kathy, so I can.
This is the same company that's been doing it for you.
Do I have to do it in a specific amount or just accept the bid?
Just accept the bid, yeah.
Go ahead. Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the fuel bid for 2025 from Riley and Sons.
a second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Officer comments? Stats?
The executive summary was provided to the police commission and the township managers on December 16th. There were no new or significant trends noticed in either of the townships. Are there any questions on that?
I have none.
The same. Overtime?
Overtime for the month was 315 hours, 0.5, like 315.5 hours total. Of that, 20 and a half were operational overtime. One item that we haven't had that was on this month, which was significant, was 87 hours. That was for training, use of force training. That is a state mandated training that both accreditation and the certification agency in Pennsylvania requires. So we had to get people in and get it done, and the only way to do it was on overtime.
Before you go ahead, and I had written down a question myself, I was going to ask you here, and that is, can you talk a little bit about what the training consists of? How is that training different from other training?
The most important power that an officer, you could say, has is the ability to legally use force on an individual, and knowing not only covering the case law when it is and is not appropriate, covering the specifics of our policy. And also, part of this, we have to do de-escalation training as part of the state mandate. That is very important. I believe our department has pretty much done that for 25 years. 25 years, but doing it to the standards of the state means we spend a little extra time delving into it. And then use of force training also is a demonstration of your ability to correctly, legally, and appropriately use non-lethal weapons, such as taser and pepper spray.
And in terms of, was this for everybody in the department?
Yeah,
And did it occur sequentially or sort of in groups, or was it everybody at once?
it was 12 hours and we had to offer multiple days
Okay.
so that everybody could get into it.
And like, of the, let's say I was an individual officer, was that a 1 hour thing for me, or was that a 4 hour thing? How did that work?
It's a 12-hour. By the time you go over the law, by the time you go over policy, you demonstrate everything, it's pretty close to a 12-hour day.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks.
And but by virtue of the fact that we only had, see here, I'm not saying it, so whatever, the number was for the use of force training, that it was that low means we did not schedule everybody on overtime. Some we were able to do on straight time.
Okay, got it.
So when you compare the last 3 months, it was, the average was 356.5 hours for the quarter. For the last 6 months, it was 274.08 hours of overtime. And year to date, the average was per month 225.29. So over the course of the year, our overtime did go up on average.
Any questions?
Yeah, not for me.
Month-end report?
I'll take that one. So our payroll expenses for the month of November were approximately 4% under budget. Benefit expenses are 31% under budget. Of course, this will change in December. Our vehicle expenses are 15% under budget. Other expenses are about 22% over budget. Once again, this has a lot to do with grants. Our total budget for November 30th is under by about 12%, and I still believe we are going to have a surplus of at least 250,000. Just as I said last month.
Question?
No,
PPUs.
Split for East Goshen and West Town for the month of November was 46.89% West Town, 53.11% East Goshen. That is a slight improvement over last month, but it is still significantly off what was originally projected to be the desired ratio.
Right, which was the 44.5 and 55.5.
Correct.
Okay.
I'd like to add that for the month of October and November, since that's the beginning of the PPU year, I removed Thornbury from the chart and just moved them to the side here since they're not part of the percentage anymore, their hours will still be along the side as long as we are going into Thornberry or either backing out for a case or a court hearing. So I redid the October one. It's right here. Thank you.
Any questions? No question. Public comment? Do you have a public comment? I have one, which is interesting. I got a note from a friend of, from Bobby and I from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He's retired from Franklin and Marshall. He wanted to let us know that their township just created from scratch. They just started and they swore in their 15 officers, a brand new police department. It was, and there was a quote from the police chief there saying that what had happened, that there was a relationship between Manheim and that township. They'd had it for 39 years. And then I guess one was no longer there. And so their township decided to get into the business of having their own police department. And the police chief said something along the lines of, we actually checked, he says, as far as we knew, this is the first police department started from scratch, to his words, in at least 25 years in anywhere in the Commonwealth, which was an interesting comment to make. So I was thinking, but that's got to be an extraordinary expense to start something from scratch. So and that's as of this week. So interesting. Any other
Sorry.
comment?
Just about Dave Milnar, raised his hand,
Sure.
so no, please.
Off mute.
I allowed his mic, but he has himself muted.
Dave, do you want to unmute your computer?
Oh, he said Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any closing comments? Good. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Before that, we wish everybody to be safe and enjoy the holiday.
Yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Hanukkah starts today, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I told you. Like that last little party.
So this for this.
Packed and ready. Are you gonna be able to do it?
Oh, yeah, I can.